Hi everyone, my name's Mel. Welcome back to my bookshelf. So January has been a very good month for book releases. A lot of wonderful books have come out this month and are coming out at the end of the month. So I thought I would just put together a list of my most anticipated releases of the month. And because I'm running late as usual, putting together this video, good for everyone watching, because if you like the look of something, most likely will already be out, so you can get it straight away. So these are the books that I'm looking forward to that are being released this month. My wallet is not so excited because there's a lot of them and they look really good. And it was a little bit depressing putting the list together because I know that I'm never going to read every single book on there because I just don't have the time. I have so many books on my TBR this year, especially like big high fantasy sagas, so it's going to be tricky to slot everything in, but we'll see how we go. So I hope you enjoy. So I'm going to start with the ones that have been released already earlier this month. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is called The Push by Ashley Audrain. So this one is a psychological thriller that's getting really rave reviews at the moment, and it is about a woman called Blythe, and she's really looking forward to having a baby. She's expecting to have this instant, motherly connection to the child, but when she has a little girl, she finds that she doesn't quite connect the way that she was expecting to. And then as the time goes on, she starts to notice that her daughter is displaying some odd behavior. Something's just not quite right with her daughter. She doesn't know if it's in her mind or if it's actually her daughter. And then she has another child, a boy, whom she instantly connects with. We don't know if there's something going on with the child. The little girl has a mean streak and something big happens, and they all have to face the truth. Blythe has to face the truth about her past and her relationship with her mother, and it just sounds like a really intense psychological thriller, and it apparently has a whole lot of twists and turns, so I always like that, and it sounds great, and it's getting amazing reviews. From the descriptions of it, it's giving me kind of a Gillian Flynn kind of vibe, so I'm hoping that that's correct. So I'm keeping an eye out for that one. Next up is another thriller that was released this month called The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. So this is set in southern United States of America. This woman named Jane is a dog walker. She walks dogs in this prestigious gated community. The residents are very wealthy. I think she has a bit of a kleptomaniac streak by the sounds of things. She comes across a widow named Nnedi. So his wife Bea and her best friend have recently both passed away in a boating accident. So she starts to walk Eddie's dogs, and then they start developing feelings for each other, and she sees an opportunity. She's never had any money, and here is this rich widow who is interested in her, and she's thrust into the shadow of his ex-wife and is struggling to get accepted by the community because she walks their dogs. I guess they see her as inferior. And then all these truths come to light about what actually happened and what Jane's story is, because not is all as it seems. So this one sounds like it is right up my alley, and I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So it sounds like a juicy thriller with lots of twists and turns and lots of characters who are not quite what they seem by the sounds of things. Bit of a change of genre now to a bit of historical fiction. This one is called Our Darkest Night by Jennifer Robson. So this is a historical fiction set in Italy in World War II. A woman named Antonia and her family flee when the Nazis occupy Italy, and so she goes to hide from the Nazis over in the countryside, and she meets a farmer called Nico. Nico is a very honourable, lovely man who takes her in to be his pretend wife. So they have to fool the whole community into believing that they're in love, but Antonia isn't used to this farming lifestyle, so she really struggles with that. And there's also a local Nazi officer becomes suspicious of the relationship and already has a vendetta against Nico, so I guess they're going to come into pass with some struggles with him. And it just sounds like lovely historical fiction, romance, wartime story. Switching over to young adult now. This one has a beautiful cover. It's called Crown of Bones, and it's apparently the first in a new young adult fantasy series. The description of this one is a bit ambiguous. It's a bit difficult to tell exactly what it's about, but from the reviews that I've read, it's been described as like Final Fantasy crossed with Avatar. Certain people in this universe can project phantoms and make them do things for them depending on what sort of skill they have. Phantoms come in like different forms and do different things, and the savants, as they're called, who can conjure these phantoms need to go on some sort of quest. That's all I really know about it, but it sounds really interesting and it's got a beautiful cover, so I'd like to see what that one's about. Another romantic fantasy from one of my all-time favourite authors, Ilona Andrew, and I say authors plural because it's a husband and wife duo who have written some of my favourite urban fantasy books. They're always delightful to read, they're always really interesting, have unique premises. I don't know how they manage to come up with something new and original each time they put out a book, but they do. So the latest one from them is called Blood Air, and it is set in the Kate Daniels universe, which everyone thought was finished, but thankfully it's back with this one. So this one is set around Julie, who is Kate's adopted daughter, and there's a mystery to solve, there's a romance to blossom, and I'm just going to read whatever Ilona Andrew writes because they are just fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this one, and that one's out now too. Let's get into sci-fi territory now with a novella. This one is called Remote Control, and it is by, and I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, Nnedi Okorafor. So this one is set in Africa. Sankofta is a little girl and she eats this green seed, and all of a sudden she becomes an adopted angel of death. So she can touch something and make it, and it will die. So she travels around Africa with a fox companion, and she can pretty much wipe out entire villages with the blink of an eye. So they call her the daughter of the angel of death. So this one sounds really interesting. It's a novella, so it's quite short, and the cover is just beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to giving this one a go. The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick is the first in a new adult fantasy series, and that series is going to be called Rook and Rose. This is an LGBT fantasy. There's a con artist whose name is Wren, and she weasels her way into this noble family pretending to be a relative, and her intentions are to swindle them out of all their money, but she ends up really enjoying their company and developing relationships with the family. And so I think by the sounds of it, she develops a bit of a moral dilemma. So she comes across this trail of corruptions, conspiracies and politics, and has to sort of decide if she's going to stay with the family or if she's going to go off back to her old life. So this one has been described as similar to the Six of Crows series, which I absolutely loved. So I'm really looking forward to giving this one a go as well. So this next book is probably the most anticipated book for me this year that I know of, and that is called The Forever Sea by Joshua Phillip Johnson. This one sounds really different. This is the first in an epic fantasy series where boats are kept afloat by magical heath fires and sail an endless grass sea. So there's a sailor named Kindred, and she finds out that her grandmother has committed suicide by jumping off her vessel. So her grandmother's like this renowned captain, very famous and respected. Then she discovers that there was a note left to her by her grandmother, and begins to realize that it might not have been a suicide after all. So she has to investigate to find out exactly what's happened to her grandmother. It just sounds so different, unique, and it gets some pretty good reviews so far. And I'm really interested to see what kind of world that these boats traveling on grass entails. I've just downloaded the audio version of it, so I'm going to start that tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it. Okay, and my last two anticipated reads of the year are coming out in a couple of days' time. The first one is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes. This one has been dubbed a mythological fiction, perfect for fans of Circe, which I absolutely loved. So I'm sold on it there already. So it's about the Trojan War, but it's set from a woman's perspective. And apparently there's a few different characters and their viewpoints of what's happening in the war at that time. Apparently takes you through some of the mythological characters, and it just sounds like it's a bit of feminism in there as well, and it sounds like something that's that I'd really enjoy. I have read that it has mixed reviews, but the general consensus is it seems pretty good, so I'm going to check it out. So my most anticipated romance release of January comes out in a couple of days, and it's called The X Talk, and it is by Lynn Solomon. So there's two radio workers who really don't like each other, and then they clash, and then their boss asks them to come up with a pitch for a new show, and one of them has the idea, well, why don't we get two exes come on the radio and give people who call up relationship advice. So their bosses think this is a great idea, but also think that because they clash and don't like each other, that maybe they would make a good ex couple. So they put them together to do this show. It's apparently this massive hit, becomes a national hit, and their lie of being exes is difficult for them to maintain. I think they feel guilty about it, and I think as they gets more popular and people delve into their past, they might be found out as liars. And of course, being a romance, I'm sure that they probably start developing feelings towards each other, but it just sounds really fun. Gets really good reviews so far, so I'm definitely going to try this one. So there you have it. They are my most anticipated new releases of January. I'll put together another list for February, and I won't leave it quite so long to put it out. But at least most of them are released now already, so if you want to try any of them, you can go for it. I'm really looking forward to the X Talk. That sounds really fun, and the Forever Sea are probably the two that I'm most anticipating. So we'll see how they go, and I'll do reviews for them for you guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.